Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Before we get into today's video, special shout out to my most recent super thankers, James Lamaika, Kevin Says, and Piao Meow Nawa. Thank you all very much for your kind support of my channel. You are the skeptical sriracha on my secular spring rolls, eliminating the hunger pangs from ravenous religious idiots. Thank you very much for helping me to continue to do what I do. And if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe, click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out, and of course, like this video, maybe pop in a comment. All that goes a long way towards pleasing the way, the truth, and the life, the YouTube algorithm, and keeping my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video. Today we're going to be looking at a video from Pastor Joe of the channel Gospelogian. Joe and his epic power beard are going to be talking about how to witness to an atheist as a Christian. I have a humble suggestion, Joe. How about don't? Just leave us the hell alone. You know, we atheists get gaslighted so much. On the one hand, you've got the Christian proselytizers like Pastor Joe here, coming up with a strategy to most effectively shove their religion on people who don't subscribe to it. Not to mention Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons knocking on our door and bothering us in our downtime in order to spread the good word. Street preachers shouting fire and brimstone on the street corner as we make our way to work every day. And of course, the myriad of politicians trying to push their theology into legislation that majorly impacts everyone's lives. And then, when non-believers attempt to push back against all of this Christian cavalcade, we get lambasted for spending so much time arguing against a God that we don't believe in.
For the atheists mocking God, they sure do spend a lot of time and money mocking a God they don't believe in.
Why would anybody spend so much time ranting and raving about something that they don't believe in?
Today I'm going to give an argument with the conclusion that all atheists should delete their channels and stop criticizing Christianity.
But alas, what are we to do when so many people who believe in their religion see it as calling to them to convert the heathens? So even though a live and let live, keep your religion to yourself mentality would be preferable, if you're feeling compelled to witness to us atheists, then we can push back with the same level of intensity. So let's hear what Pastor Joe has to say about witnessing to atheists and see if we can't critique his strategy. Over to you, Joe.
So, jumping right into this, an atheist is someone that doesn't believe there is a God. That is the definition of an atheist. But let me tell you something that you need to understand going into. And I don't suggest you start a conversation with this, but it's knowledge that you need to interpret this well. First of all, as I like to tell people, the A in atheist stands for angry.
Credit where it's due, you at least got the initial definition of atheist correct. Very often, theists like to claim that atheism is an insistence that God does not exist, or believing that God does not exist, attempting to turn a lack of belief into a positive belief, as it then requires proof to validate that positive belief, thereby shifting the burden of proof onto the non-believer. But yes, atheism is not believing that there is a God. Unfortunately, you then go into another Christian stereotype of atheist when you claim that the A in atheist stands for angry. Obviously, you're attempting a subtle joke. You don't mean that literally, but just for clarification, atheism, from the Greek a, meaning without, and theos, meaning God. The A in atheism literally means without.
Here's the thing. No one doesn't believe there's a God. In fact, this is why we don't have anti-leprechaun or anti-unicorn clubs, because everyone knows leprechauns and unicorns don't exist.
Yes, exactly. You are so close to understanding this, Joe. But then you shit the bed with the whole no one actually doesn't believe in God thing. Yeah, there are no A unicorns or A leprechaun groups because everyone knows that those things don't exist. But if there was a strong contingent of people who did believe in them, or worse, if the majority of people did believe in leprechauns and unicorns and spent lots of time and effort in the pursuit of attempting to appease these invisible creatures, maybe spending public funds to enforce the leprechaun's teachings through legislation, or bringing the idea of unicorn magic into science classrooms, you can bet your ass there would be large contingents of a leprechaun and a unicorn organizations forming to try and counter all of this nonsense. It isn't because atheists secretly believe in God deep down and we just want to deny that unspoken reality that makes us atheists. It's that there are so many ways theists are trying to shove their religion down our throats and into our lives that causes it. We have to band together to form things like the Freedom from Religion Foundation or Recovering from Religion, among others, just to try to keep your theology out of our lives and deal with the fallout that people experience when we're unable to do so.
And we don't have organizations dedicated to spreading information about how it's not real, writing books about how they're not real, because they're not real, and we all know that. The fact that you're mad at something, the fact that you're against something is actually evidence that it exists.
Are you stoned? So then, everyone who was against Thanos and mad when he snapped half of the population out of existence is evidence that Thanos exists and it really happened? If we're against Order 66 and the killing of all Jedi, including the younglings, then that's evidence that the Empire does indeed exist? Darth Vader is real and galactic fascism was implemented a long time ago in a galaxy far away? Or here's something that hits a little closer to home. As a Christian, I would take it that you're against the practice of Islam and the belief in Allah, even though the concept is the same Abrahamic God that you believe in, just interpreted differently. But does you being against the Islamic interpretation of God mean that that version of God then actually exists? Are you against the Westboro Baptist claim that God kills soldiers because he hates gay people and is punishing the world for allowing gay people to exist? Well, if you're against that belief, then does that mean that that belief is actually true? Because being against something or angry at it must mean that actually exists, right? I mean, that's what you just said. Or is it that you're against people believing something that you hold to be false, especially when they're motivated to live and act in certain ways that you hold to be detrimental based on that belief? Well, if it's fine for you to be against people believing in something you hold to be false, why can't the same be true of we atheists? Why can't we be against a belief system and practices that impact a major part of everyone's lives in ways that we are against, that is all based on something that we think is fictional? Because that's what we're doing. We aren't angry at a fictional deity because we secretly, deep down, really believe that it exists. If we're angry at all, we're angry at the belief itself and possibly the practitioners of the faith. Two things that definitely do exist.
And the reason I say that atheists are mad at God, that they don't believe in him, what they're essentially trying to do is get back at God for not doing things the way they want. Most people, when you talk to them about God and you're like, well, hey, why don't you believe in God? Here's how that conversation will go 90% of the time.
Why don't you believe in God? Because I don't think there's sufficient convincing evidence to warrant believing in God. But God wrote the knowledge of his existence into your heart, so deep down you already believe in God. No, I don't deep down believe in God, and it's presumptuous of you to say so. I know my own mind better than you do. But it says in the Bible that a fool has said in his heart that there is no God, that you just deny God in your unrighteousness. I don't care what it says in your holy book. I'm telling you, I don't see any good reason to believe in God. Why are you so angry at God? I'm not. You are. You hate God, clearly. And that's why you claim you don't believe when you know that God exists. You're just rejecting his love for you. All right, I'm done. Good day to you, sir. Yep, just another person who believes in God but hates him. But how do you think the conversation would go, Joe?
Well, if God was so good, why bad things happen? So either he's not good or he's not powerful. What they do is they hit you with the problem of evil. Philosophical conundrum for a good while. If God is love, if God is good, if God is powerful, why do bad things happen in the world? There are a lot of answers to that.
That's the kind of thing an atheist will bring out if you're actually having a theological discussion on whether or not God exists, or if the Christian faith is correct. But it's unlikely to be what you get if you just ask an atheist why they don't believe in God. After all, bad things happening is not a reason to not believe in the existence of any God. There are plenty of God concepts that allow for evil. Many theologies have evil being caused by various gods. Many pantheistic religions have war gods who cause and thrive on strife and violence. Heck, we don't even have to go to non-Abrahamic religions for that. Your own God caused intense misery in your own mythology, flooded the world, caused horrible plagues against innocent people because he was mad at their ruler, commanded genocides, condoned slavery. The problem of evil is an argument against a specific type of theology that insists on a tri-omni God who is supposedly omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. It isn't an argument against the mere existence of any God. So I can't see that being a retort from an atheist when asked why they don't believe in God at all. I don't believe in God simply because I don't see any good reason to believe in God. That's the answer you'll get 99% of the time.
But atheists are angry at God for not doing things the way they want them done. So when you start dealing with an atheist, what I like to do is look at classical apologetics for starters, and then move into presuppositional apologetics. I'm going to talk about what those two things are in just a minute. In fact, the presuppositional is my secret weapon, and I'm excited to tell you about that.
Presuppositionalism? Really? That is your secret weapon against atheist non-belief?
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
You know, I often have to catch myself when presented with different apologetic arguments, because I have a tendency to want to always say that whatever the apologetic tactic is, that it is one of the worst arguments for God. I mean, they can't all be among the worst. Some have to be better than others. But I liken it to being presented with really bad smells. Someone runs month-old moldy sweat socks under your nose, and you cough out that that is the worst smell ever. Then someone gives you a whiff of a skunk spray, and you belch out that it is the worst smell ever. Then you get slapped with Roseanne's unwashed undergarments, and as they try to hold you back from throwing yourself out the window, you yell about how that is the worst smell ever. It all seems to be the worst when you're being presented with it. Anyway, that's how I respond to many Christian apologetic techniques. And that is certainly true with presuppositionalism. It's quite bad and downright laughable as a theistic argument. But let's hear Joe's version of it, since it's his secret weapon and all.
Classical apologetics, there's several great arguments to come across this. My favorite argument is the watch in the field argument. And so when I dealt with some atheists actually on the boardwalk of New Jersey not too long ago, I used this illustration. I said, if you were going in a field and you found a watch in that field, how do you think that watch got there?
Literally, the blind watchmaker argument? Not even trying to alter it to something else, like that a tornado hit a junkyard and randomly assembled a jumbo jet? I mean, that's one of my favorite derivatives of the teleological argument. Alright, basically, man-made objects, like a watch, are necessarily man-made, ergo designed. Natural things, like life forms or planets or the universe, are not man-made, and therefore you can't use the existence of man-made objects like watches to say that what's true of the watch, being intelligently designed, will be true of the natural thing. Complexity is not a hallmark of design. Both complexity and simplicity, both order and chaos, are natural states that can exist free of intelligent design, but only subject to the natural forces of the universe.
We know there's a God because we have intelligently designed things all around us. We know these things don't pop up from nothing. We've never been walking around the road and bam, molecules align to give us a new car. It doesn't work that way. And so even atheists have to apply their own logic to try to understand these things. And I always challenge the atheists, hey, if you wouldn't use this logic to explain a watch in a field, why would you use this logic to answer away your problem of an eternal destination and God that immediately affects you right here on Earth?
I do apply the same logic. I wouldn't expect molecules to self-assemble into a car because a car is not a naturally forming object. It's a machine. It's man-made. Man-made objects do not occur naturally, and no one, anywhere, ever claims that they do. There's no principle of atheism that says that that should happen. There's no secular philosophy that posits watches, computers, or iPhones growing from trees. There are things designed and created by man, and there are things that are designed and created by other life forms like beaver dams or beehives, and then there are things that are formed naturally through natural processes. Planets, stars, galaxies, plants, animals, protozoa, among many other things, these are natural. The problem with the Christian viewpoint, where the teleological argument is concerned, is that it positions literally everything as the creation of God and therefore intelligently designed. That every natural thing that exists is actually the work of Almighty God and therefore further proof of His existence. So it doesn't matter what I point to as non-designed, you'll claim that it being complex means that it must have been designed and could only have been designed by God. If I point to a snowflake as a complex natural formation, and therefore proof that you don't need intelligent design for something to be complex, you'll just claim that because it's complex, that must mean it was designed, and only God could have designed a snowflake. Boom! Proof of God. Literally everything is just further proof for the teleological argument to you. Now, the major problem with that is the issue of falsifiability. Falsifiability, introduced by philosopher Karl Popper, claims that a hypothesis can only be accepted if there exists some criteria for which it could be proven false, and that hypothesis then overcomes such falsifiable criteria. Now, if everything that exists is seen as proof of God's design, then how could the teleological argument ever be proven false? If literally everything is designed, then what could ever be pointed to as something undesigned to disprove that notion? Basically, you can't rationally accept the idea of intelligent design if you insist that everything, everywhere, must necessarily be intelligently designed, and nothing could convince you otherwise. But what does any of this have to do with presuppositionalism? I thought we were supposed to be talking about your secret weapon, Joe, not the teleological argument. It's been all design so far. Let's get to presuppositionalism. Let's get to the main event.
But here's the secret weapon, and here's what I like to point people to. Number one is every atheist deep down actually believes two things. They know they have an eternal destination, and they know they are guilty before God. And this is your secret weapon because the Bible tells us about it in both of these verses. We know that the law of God is written on the heart of man, and we know that every man knows that he is destined for an eternity somewhere, and they know that deep down.
Since you trotted out a couple of quotes from the Bible to make your point, let me trot out a quote of my own, and one that I hold in much higher esteem than anything in the Bible. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Now, I hold it to be an extraordinary claim that you are making that, despite our claim to the contrary, atheists really do believe in God and believe that we are guilty before God. You need some extraordinary evidence to prove that claim, to prove that we actually believe in God and that we are guilty before Him. And the Bible saying it does not cut it, because atheists don't particularly care what the Bible says. So, without anything constituting good evidence to support the claim that atheists actually believe in God, it can be dismissed out of hand without any great effort being made to disprove it. So basically, when you say I really believe in God, and I believe that I'm guilty before Him, well, nuh-uh.
So I actually really prefer a Ray Comfort-based style of evangelism.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
And whatever credibility you had just flew out the window. Anyone who cites Ray Banana Man Comfort as a reference or a style that they want to adopt has immediately identified themselves as a religious clown worthy of mockery. Seriously, Ray is one of the worst, and I've already dissected his tactics more than once in the past. Ray generally does his shtick in California, so he's never in my neck of the woods, but I would actually love to encounter someone employing his style of evangelizing at some point. because I would have a field day rhetorically disassembling the Christian who tries Ray's tactics on me.
Ray Comfort has a great way. He works people down the idea that they can make mistakes and so they shouldn't be the ultimate authority. He works down the ideas of we all stand guilty before God and we need a savior. He's really great at that.
Ray berates people with the 10 Commandments, insists that they violated them, and so they deserve to go to hell. But of course, none of that has any impact on someone who doesn't give a crap about the 10 Commandments. I mean, I don't care that I don't keep holy the Sabbath. Holy doctrine only works as an argument if you believe in that holy doctrine. Hey Joe, have you smited your enemies with furious wrath and merciless violence? You haven't? Then you've sinned against Ares, the god of war, and you need his forgiveness for your transgressions. Oh, you don't believe in Ares or the proclamations of his faith? Well, then I guess this style of evangelizing isn't going to have much of an impact on you, is it?
When you are approaching an atheist, here's my thing. Number one, you need to know they actually believe God exists, and that's something you need to keep in your back pocket. They're mad at God. Look for the hurt, because when you can find the emotional force that's driving their argument and realize that this is not a logic-based argument, because logically, there's a God. This is an emotionally based argument. That's where you're actually going to minister to the person.
No, we don't. And often, when a Christian evangelizer can't get an emotional response from an atheist because that atheist's disbelief is simply an intellectual proposition, that they see no good reason to believe in God, then the Christian will try to elicit an emotional response. This tactic of telling a non-believer that they really do believe deep down can often do that job quite nicely. See, people tend to get irritated when you tell them that they don't believe what they claim that they actually believe, or that they believe in something that they claim that they don't. Most people don't like others telling them what's going on in their own heads. And so, if they can get the atheist angry by way of their evangelizing tactics, then they have basis to tell themselves that that is just your stereotypical angry atheist. See, it's just their underlying hatred of God at work. Otherwise, they wouldn't get so peeved off when the Christian's just trying to spread the good word of a loving God. No, you're being a presumptuous, condescending prick. That tends to rub people the wrong way, Joe.
And then we just have faith, because the best answer for all of our problems is, in the words of Andre Crouch, Jesus is the answer for the world today.
Jesus is the answer to all of your problems? What about those with life-threatening health conditions? Praying to Jesus or God or any deified being in order to heal illness or injury in oneself or others has been shown to have no beneficial effect on those being prayed for. This has been borne out in multiple studies. In some studies, the people being prayed for actually had worse health outcomes when they knew they were being prayed for. This could be that the infirmed felt a responsibility to get better in order to prove the efficacy of prayer and faith, and then when they didn't get better, they crashed even harder than they would have without the expectation of miraculous recovery. And even when some small benefit from prayer could be seen, it can easily be chalked up to the placebo effect rather than any kind of divine intervention. But this notion of Jesus being the answer to all of your problems falls under the same issue as your previous teleological argument, the problem of falsifiability. If you pray to Jesus for anything and you get it, then Jesus answered your prayers. If you pray to JC and you don't get it, then either it wasn't the right thing for you, or it wasn't the right time, or Jesus is going to answer that prayer, it'll just come later, or in some other form than what you expected. Or maybe he's testing your faith and you just have to push through the hardship that you were praying that he would take away. He moves in mysterious ways, etc. No matter what's happening after the prayer, no matter how much it may seem that the prayer is not getting answered, the typical Christian belief is that it really is being answered, even if you can't see how. Also, when it seems that you do get what you want, when it seems that a prayer is being answered, that falls prey to the post hoc fallacy, shorthand for post hoc ergo propter hoc, which is Latin for after this, therefore because of this. It's claiming that because event Y followed event X, event Y must have been caused by event X without properly establishing causality. If you go to a job interview and afterwards pray that Jesus moves their hearts to offer you the job, and then the next day you get a call and they offer you the job, that isn't an indication that your prayer worked. Even people who don't pray to Jesus get job offers. You have to establish a clear chain of causality. Just because you got what you prayed for doesn't mean the prayer had anything to do with it. So if seemingly answered prayers confirm your idea that Jesus is the answer to your problems, and seemingly unanswered prayers also confirm your idea that Jesus is the answer to your problems, then what could ever falsify this idea? Nothing. Thus, it's not a logical position to hold to.
Know that you do have the answer. The Bible has the answers to their questions. There's no question an atheist can ask you that the Bible cannot answer well.
How do you synthesize a methylated alkaloid?
I don't know.
Fine now.
So that was Pastor Joe's advice to other Christians on how to witness to atheists. We had some of the classics from Christian apologetics, the teleological argument, some slight presuppositionalism, appeals to the Bible to people who don't believe in the Bible, so I don't know how you think that's going to be impactful, and something that should be a recognized fallacy all on its own, appeal to Ray Comfort. Not very strong stuff from Pastor Joe here. In fact, a lot of this is going to be totally counterproductive if your goal is to have a productive theological discussion with an atheist. Word to the wise, no one likes it when you tell them what they actually believe and don't believe when they're telling you otherwise. No one likes being told they're basing their position on being angry when they're telling you that it's a philosophical or intellectual position. Here's some better advice that would get you a lot farther conversing with literally anyone who holds different ideological positions than you do. Actually listen to what they say and believe them when they tell you why they think what they think. The minute you tell someone that they don't know their own mind, you've effectively ended the discussion and turned it into a fight. Because seriously, that is totally shots fired kind of behavior. But hey, when you effectively piss off the non-believer, then rhetorically spar with them until they've had enough of it and just leave, then you can just tell yourself that it's just a typical angry atheist, mad at God, and that's why they're getting so emotional. And the fact that they got so angry is proof that they really do believe in God, because no one gets angry at something they don't believe in. What? What is this gaslighting that you speak of? I've never heard of that. But if this advice of mine about how to actually and more effectively converse with a non-believer is too much of an effort for you, I would point you back to my initial advice that I really wish you would follow. Just leave us the hell alone altogether. So that is where we'll end things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Till next time, I'm Professor Plank reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.